Alright, so you've made it to the resource page. These are all the resources that I ever used from day one until today. Some of these resources I still use quite a bit. For the listening portion, you'll find that I broke it up into two sections. One of resources from native speakers and the other were done by non-native speakers. The reason why I did that is because I believe that people need to be given the choice. Because there were a number of native speakers that said this in the 70s, up until the 90s. I've heard on recordings and I've seen them on video, making a distinction of school language and their language. And there was an obvious difference. Now they're the same language, meaning they have the same words, same grammar, same setup. But what makes them very different is the pronunciation, the intonation, the flow, thought process as well. So we're giving you the choice. We have these different resources. For us, we rely heavily on the native speaker resources. Although early on, before we kind of got set more in our ways, we did use resources that were made by second language speakers. So you have a choice. You can learn more of the native speaker language, or you can learn more from second language speakers, which is most speakers of the language today. Vocabulary. You're going to be building vocabulary from day one and probably for the rest of your life. I don't even know all the words in my first language. So you're going to want to just keep building vocabulary, find a way that works best for you. At points of my learning, I would say I'm going to try to learn 5 new words per week. Sometimes setting a goal helps. For some of you, maybe that's not how you want to do it. And then finally, there's writing and speaking. So writing, I started to jot my notes down in a notebook, and then I started using my phone because I didn't carry the notebook everywhere. So use your laptop, use a book, your phone, whatever works best for you. But it helps when you jot down questions or something that you learned, maybe new words, maybe a word that you couldn't find in the dictionary when you first saw it. So you have to look more into that. But when you get to the point where you're starting to put sentences together, then it's really good to practice your writing. When you're listening and reading different material, then you'll want to start to write them down and test yourself and see if you can produce what you're hearing and what you're reading. For reading materials, we used instructional books. As you'll see, we used Papakilo database, which had all of the newspapers, the Hawaiian language newspapers, dating back from 1834 to 1840 to the 1840s and on. The Pukea Moromona, I read within the first 2 years of learning all 501 pages, or 511, one of those. Obviously the Hawaiian grammar book will give you grammar, and then the Hawaiian dictionary. The good thing with all these reading resources is they're all free and they're all online. Now speaking, when you get to that point, or maybe you're already at that point of speaking, maybe I'll talk to those who are not quite there yet. When you begin to be able to put sentences together, you're gonna wanna start trying to build your community. What I mean by that is you may not live here in Hawaii, and even if you do, your neighbors may not speak it. That may be pretty common and pretty widespread. Most people don't. So you're gonna have to try to find speakers. Make friends with people. You might have to take a class to try to interact with people. If you follow us on social media, well, there's groups and groups of people that are interested in learning. There could be a group that you find there. You need to build a community because in order for the language to really live and for you to progress as a speaker, then you need to find people that are above your level so that they can raise you up. My last and probably one of my most important tips for those who are already speakers or those that are going to become speakers when you get to this point. I talked about native speech and non-native speech. What I used to do, and I've still done it occasionally recently, is I would record myself. I would tell an actual story from my life, or I would just talk to myself and I would listen back to it. And when I was listening back to it, now that I've listened to native speakers for hours on end, is it at all reminiscent of the way that they speak? Is my voice going up at points when their voice goes up? Is it really monotone and flat? Am I putting stress on the right vowel like they do, or am I following more of a non-native speaker's way of speaking? So that is probably the most valuable tip for those trying to change the way that you speak so that it resembles native speech. And I've given that out to a lot of different people as a tip. Nobody's gotten back to me yet. I haven't seen anybody make huge strides with that. But I can tell you that when I listen to a recording of my own voice, the beginning of my second year of speaking and then now, it's almost a world of difference. So I know it works. I know these resources help. This is all tried and true for us. These things work. You can teach yourself up into a conversational level. You can find a community to speak with. You can change your speech going from a non-native speaker and then becoming very close to a native speaker. I've known a number of people that have done that and have been successful and fool a lot of people. In fact, I personally have fooled people, not intentionally, but have asked me, are you a native speaker? What island are your kupuna from? Because they assumed that I had grown up speaking it. So it can be done. Take advantage of these resources. Reach out to us on social media. Leave comments at the end of this video. Kia aloha no.